So let's talk about Greg's experiment. So what he did is he took these inbred lines and he bred them with each other. Okay. And we're going to call this that parental generation, the P generation. And those, the resulting offspring, then we're going to call the F1 generation. And what Greg noticed was when he used this cross fertilization technique on the parents, all of the offspring ended up being tall. So then he took pollen from this flower and did this process of self-fertilization. And what he found was that 75% of the resulting offspring of this self-fertilization ended up being tall, but 25% were short. And this was perplexing to Greg because tall boys always make tall kids, right? And these tall plants usually made tall kids, but not always. So where did these short genes come from? Well, Greg obviously noticed that that short trait skipped a generation. Right? This was novel at the time. So Greg didn't do this with just the height of the plants. He also looked at a total of 7 traits. So flower color, flower position, seed color, seed shape, right? So if we're looking at flower color, when he looked at these, he crossed purple flowers and white flowers, and he found that all those kids had purple flowers. But then when he inbred them with themselves, right? So that now we're having this self-fertilization, we're showing a ratio that's roughly 3-to-1, right? 75% purple and about 25% white. We're getting consistently this 3-to-1 ratio of 75% of plants looking at one way and the 25% of the offspring looking the other option. Okay. So and this wasn't just a fluke thing, right? Because now we have 7 different traits that are showing the same pattern. That's not random. There's something that's going on here that's creating this pattern that Greg's observing. So based on these results, Greg made 3 conclusions. He found that there's a dominant allele and a recessive allele, okay? That one of these versions of these genes will mask the other version. In each individual, we're going to have 2 forms of those genes, right? And we know that those are alleles, right? The variations on those traits, okay? Brown eyes, blue eyes. We have some terms that we learned last chapter that is associated with these 2 forms. Diploid and what I want you to do is go remind yourself what these words mean and then tell me how do they relate to Greg's conclusion that each individual has 2 forms of a gene. Okay. Greg also noted that these alleles, right? Greg didn't call these alleles, but now we do, so we're just going to use those words, that they're going to separate during the process of gamete formation. Gamete formation? Hold on. We know what that process is. What is that process called that produces gametes? We learned about it last chapter.